Welcome to Madame Raven's. This way to the library. She's been expecting you.
Hello, my darlings. As this time of year is busy, I'm afraid I only had a short story for you today. But Dr. Creepen has kindly agreed to pick up the slack. So you'll get a story from me and one from him. Be warned, my first story does deal with things that are sensitive, involving very dark emotions. If it is a bit too much, please feel free to jump forward. I will put a timestamp down in the comments so you know where to jump over mine to hear Dr. Creepen's. Thank you, my darlings. Enjoy. William Hughes Mearns wrote a poem called Antigonish that went something like this. Yesterday upon the stair I met a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. I wish he'd go away. When I came home last night at 3, the man was waiting there for me. But when I looked around the hall, I couldn't see him there at all. Go away, don't you come back any more. Go away, and please don't slam the door. Last night I saw upon the stair a man who wasn't there. He wasn't there again today. Oh, how I wish he'd go away. I thought of this poem when I saw this little story by Thayeryan, who I've read before. I bring you a man who doesn't exist. I met a man who doesn't exist. I'm not referring to a ghost. Everyone always thinks that. I've stopped trying to convince my friends and family. They don't believe me and probably never will. I can only rely on strangers now, so I'm giving this my best shot. A few nights ago, I was having trouble sleeping, something not all too uncommon for me. I burnt through my usual rituals like video games, funny YouTube channels, and porn. But nothing was gripping my attention and whisking me away from this crappy reality. I began to contemplate a lot of my life and the choices I'd made. Also something not too uncommon for me. Right around the time that I began to consider ending my life, I heard a knock at my door. It was 3 a.m. and I scare easily. So I was immediately very nervous. Cautiously, I approached the door, hoping that my silence would convince the visitors that no one was awake. As I reached for the handle, I could feel the hair on my arms standing on end. I considered putting my eye to the peephole, but then I thought of all the stupid horror movies where people got their eyes gouged out. At that point, I committed to waiting them out until they left. "Good evening to you, stranger," I heard a voice say with a deep but calming tone. I couldn't bring myself to speak. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything too important." Without rationalizing, I looked through the peephole. I could only see the side of the man's head, and his face was obscured by darkness formed by his jacket's hood. "Might we talk briefly?" I rested my hand on the knob. Although I was scared in the moment, something told me he was no threat. Perhaps his polite manner, or maybe it was the tone itself. I turned the knob and opened the door. "Thank you," the silhouette's warm voice called as he stepped through the threshold and found its way onto my couch. "Sit," he requested. I shut the door and made my way to the opposite end of the couch, where we sat in silence for a moment before speaking. He was wearing a dark gray down jacket with brown khakis, black fabric gloves, and white jogging shoes. I thought his outfit was uniquely ordinary and wondered if that maybe had been intentional to some end. Despite his non-threatening nature, there was still a tension in the air. Who are you? I managed to get out. Koi. Like the fish? I asked, probably sounding rude. Correct. Like the fish. He continued to sit quietly, which allowed the odd swirl of confusion and fear to stir for a few moments longer than I'd have preferred. I'd only dared a couple of times to look at his face, but his hood remained up and the lighting in my apartment was quite dim due to the late hour, so there was nothing to see. How will you do it? He asked stoically. Do what? You are unhappy, correct? You're asking me about killing myself? The man's hood moved very slowly as he nodded. No, I'm not. I'm okay, I acknowledged awkwardly. Child, I can feel it. The cold emptiness that fills you. It's the mark of our kind. I couldn't respond. There was a kind of static that stretched across my skin as he mentioned our kind. Koi, what did you come here for tonight? I asked, finally acknowledging to myself that I had let a strange man into my home in the middle of the night. You shouldn't be alone, he started. If you're intending to leave the earth, then you should do it with your own kind. Otherwise, it's too easy to become lost on your way to us. That's why I'm here. I couldn't wrap my head around everything all at once. 1,000 questions bubbled to the surface, but something stopped me from asking. Maybe fear or divine intervention, or possibly I didn't want the answers to begin with. Our mark weighs heavy on the souls of humankind. The select few who are tempted to no end to answer the call and relieve themselves of their mortality. Living your life is encouraged and will only bring wisdom to the long years that come after. However, the feeling of our mark carries that of a call. A call to join the others, I said, attempting to connect the dots. A call to serve your higher purpose. Its weight will never leave you, and if you choose to answer it, there is no turning back. What is the higher purpose? I asked, starting to feel unsure of everything. It's hard to translate into terms you can comprehend now, but a sufficient answer would be to seek. The entire conversation began to feel strange and almost silly to me then. Was this some homeless man who had wandered into my home and was now goading me into suicide? Or was he trying to deter me from it? How did he know what I was thinking to begin with? I stood to my feet, unable to share the couch with him anymore. I don't know what this is or who you are, but it isn't funny. Your frustration was anticipated, it said, still seated while looking up towards me. You can't just show up in the middle of the night and spout off nonsense, expecting me to accept it as fact, I said angrily, letting my confusion get the best of me. Coy sat quietly for a moment, before slowly rising to his feet in front of me. His gloved hand rose to his head, removing his hood that came to a rest on his shoulders. Continue living, child. Push onward for as long as you can. The day you choose to answer the call, I will be there to hold your hand, and we can leave this life behind as brothers. I reached my hand slowly from my side upwards towards his head, where I was met with nothing. His clothing collapsed to the ground, and I was left behind with the knowledge that he had shared. Everyone I've told thinks I was high or simply exhausted from several sleepless nights. I need to find someone who has met with this non-existent man. Someone must share his experience somewhere. For now, I'm going to push onward like he said. Of course, I question my experience, but I can't shake this feeling. A weight in my soul, like a call to the great beyond. So quoth this raven.
It's true, what they say. Monsters do exist. They have always existed and will continue to do so. They live in our minds, infesting them with suicidal and horrible thoughts. Some of us give in, some of us don't. It's the battle that never ends. But there are more strange and fearsome things. The things that lurk in the shadows and only come out when it's dark on our planet. They feast on us, on our fear, our guilt, and every bad emotion we have. This is a story about one of those things that want to destroy our people, kill us, torture us. I stare at the TV screen. Just some classic bullshit about politics again. My mind wanders off to several different thoughts. My wife, my job, my family. I work for the local police station, and since there are rarely any crimes in this town, we mostly eat donuts, drink coffee, and get fat. Although I wouldn't call myself that. I go to the gym every day and try to eat healthy. Although tonight, I have a bag of chips with me. A thought comes rushing into my mind. It was about a case we had last month. A man was washed ashore. He was dead, obviously, and covered in bite marks. And in some parts of his body there was flesh ripped out. His eyes were gone as well. We thought sharks, but they don't usually just bite some dead prey and leave it. No. There was something quite off about this bizarre incident. We had to close the case since there were no suspects, and the man's body was too destroyed to identify him. I felt a breeze of cold air the moment I sat up from the couch. The kitchen window was open. I got up to close it, and as I did, I saw a figure standing outside, looking at our window. I was a bit creeped out, I'm not going to lie. I hesitantly closed the window and then shut the blinds, thinking about how creepy this actually was. I yawned and opened the bedroom. My wife was long asleep, so I kissed her on the cheek, dressed down to my underwear, and silently got into bed and pulled the covers over my body. I was awoken at about 3 a.m. from knocking on the door. We lived in an apartment on the 4th floor, so it wasn't likely that any homeless person could have gotten in. Yet I got up, put on a pair of shorts, since it was summer outside, and went to look. I heard the knock again, and this time it was more violent. I said, "Hello?" and immediately regretted saying it. From the other side of the door, I heard an old man's voice. "Go. Run. They'll get you. Run. Run. They will eat you." And then there was silence. I listened for breathing, but there was none. In fact, it was way too quiet, more than it should be. We lived under a bar, and people go there every night. I was really creeped out when I, once again, felt cold air rush up my back. I looked behind me and saw the window in the kitchen open again. What? I'd closed it when I went to sleep. I walked slowly to the kitchen and to the window. I saw the same figure still standing there. I shut the window fast, locking it with a lock that we had over each window. I shut the blinds, took my gun from the safe and put it on my nightstand, just in case. I went back to bed, but it's needless for me to say that I didn't close my eyes once again that night. The next morning, once I woke up, my wife was cooking breakfast already. I entered the kitchen, still tired from the sleepless night, said good morning to her and asked if she had opened the window at night. She denied doing it, so I was left thinking about this all day long. I won't bother telling you about my workday, because it was boring as hell. Nothing ever happened in this small town. I got home before my wife, because she works at the mall and she comes home at 8. I had about 3 hours for myself, so I decided to check out the window once again. I opened the blinds and let the sun shine in. The dark figure was obviously gone. Nothing seemed off or out of the ordinary. The window wasn't broken or anything, and I had no explanation as to how it had opened, if none of us had done it. We don't have strong winds here. Not ones that will blow open a shut window. Definitely not. I was confused. Things like this just don't happen. I don't believe in ghosts or anything like that. I decided to throw some bad thoughts out of my head and go out to smoke a cigarette and wait for my wife to come home, since she only works a few 100 meters away from here and she's on foot. Once she gets home, we order pizza for dinner, watch a movie, and do adult stuff. Talk, laugh, drink a bit. We go to sleep at around 1 a.m., and I check the window before we do so. It's shut. No figure standing outside this night. I go to the back door and check the lock on the door as well. Locked, and no sound outside. I go back to the bathroom, turn out the lights and jump into bed. I feel cold. I wake up. My watch is unplugged. I turn around and see the bed beside me empty. A cold sweat is rushing down my spine. My wife is gone. I bolt upright in bed. I feel the cold again. I grab my gun and walk out of the bedroom. What I see is terrifying. Every window is open, wide open. The cool air is blowing in. I proceed to close every window and, as I do, I call for my wife. No answer. I check the bathroom and every other room. Nothing. Finally, the kitchen. The window is the last one open there. I walk inside the dark kitchen, pointing my gun at the window. It's an intruder, I proceed to tell myself. But something inside me knows this is something worse. I don't dare to turn on the lights in the kitchen. I'm scared that I might see something I will... well, I don't know. I slowly approach the window. Then I see it, It's my wife. Well, her face to be exact. A minute later, it's gone. I want to call out to her, but I can't. My mouth is dry. My hand with the gun is now shaking. I'm at the window and I see it. The figure. It's sitting on the tree. It's not a man. It has 6 eyes and way too many arms. It sits there, smiling with its huge mouth. I don't know what to do. One's mind can only process what it understands. Then, suddenly, the creature lunges at me, trying to grab me with its long and nail-covered fingers. I fire a shot at it. The bullet just bounces off, so I try pushing it away from myself. It tries to eat my face, but I use all of my strength I have in me to push its jaws away from me. Then, an idea sparks into my mind. I'm gonna burn myself and this fucker with it. Our flat has a gasoline tank. It's not much, but it might be enough to light this apartment on fire. I know this sounds crazy, but I think it's the only chance I've got. With all of my strength, I push this thing off me and throw a kitchen knife at it. It screams a terrifying scream and growls in pain. This gives me the split second to close the window and rush out of the room and shut the door behind me. I feel pain in my wrist. Blood is soaking in my shorts as well. I take the gasoline container from the washing room and open it, splashing the gasoline all over the floor. What surprises me is that I hear no sound from the kitchen whatsoever. I empty half of it and proceed to walk back to the kitchen. I wait for a moment, then brace myself for the worst and walk inside. My wife is standing in front of me. She wraps her arms around me and starts whispering to me, and I almost believe that it's her. But there is one thing. Since when does my wife have red eyes? I scream and punch her away. Immediately her skin starts peeling off, revealing the creature. I smile and splash the remaining gasoline around me and on the creature as well. It stares at me for a moment. I look into its eyes of hell. Then I pull out my lighter, and just as the thing jumps on top of me, I drop it on the ground. I feel sharp pain, and then I'm falling into the black abyss. Local newspaper reports. 4 killed in apartment fire. The fire supposedly started from the 4th floor and lit up the whole building. It took 2 days for the firemen to completely extinguish the fire, which could have been caused by a gasoline explosion. The bodies of 4 persons were found. All were men. The most destroyed body had bizarre marks on it. Parts of the man's body were bitten out, and his eyes were gone.
A huge thank you to Dr. Creepen for helping me out. And an apology to you all for my birds. They tend to stay quiet unless I want to record for some odd reason. Thank you all for coming to listen. And special thanks to my Patreon supporters, Ermin Case, Darren and Jennifer, and Laura. If you like this, please hit the little button to let me know. If you didn't, hit the little button to let me know. Leave a comment. I'm always glad to talk with you, my darlings. I'm open to suggestions and criticisms, critiques. If you have not subscribed, please do so and ring the little bell so you know when to come up and see me. And I will talk to you next time, my darlings. Farewell.